Purple crayon marks covered the white paper in loops and swirls. Lily Patterson hummed a song about butterflies while her small hand moved across the page. She sat cross-legged on the floor of her father's classroom, not paying attention to the older students practicing their math problems at their desks. Roy Patterson walked between the rows of chairs, checking homework from 12 different species. Teaching on Harmony Point meant dealing with students who breathed different air, ate different food, and learned at different speeds. Some had tentacles instead of hands. Others had 4 eyes or scales instead of skin. But they all needed to learn basic galactic history, and Roy tried his best to make it interesting. "Teacher Roy, can you help me with question 5? A small blue creature with 6 legs raised one limb high in the air. Roy nodded and headed over, glancing back at Lily to make sure she stayed out of trouble. His daughter loved coming to work with him ever since her regular school closed for repairs. She never bothered anyone, just drew pictures and played quietly in the corner. The classroom door opened with a soft hiss. An old dragon stepped inside, her silver scales catching the light from the windows. She walked slowly, leaning on a carved wooden staff. 2 younger dragons followed behind her, both wearing the formal robes of diplomats visiting the station. Roy straightened up. "Can I help you? This is a closed class session." The old dragon did not answer, her golden eyes fixed on something across the room. She moved forward, each step deliberate and careful. The younger dragons whispered to each other in their clicking language, looking confused. Lily kept drawing, unaware of the attention. She had switched to a yellow crayon now, adding new shapes between the purple ones. The old dragon stopped 5 feet away from the little girl. Her mouth opened slightly. The staff fell from her claws and clattered on the floor. She began making a strange sound, something between a gasp and a sob. "Grandmother Scale, what is wrong?" One of the younger dragons rushed to her side, steadying her with a wing. The old dragon pointed at Lily's paper with a shaking claw. "That child, those marks, they are worm script." Roy moved quickly to stand between the dragons and his daughter. "What are you talking about? She's just drawing." "Those are not drawings." Grandmother Scale's voice came out rough and broken. "Those are words written in a language lost for 50,000 years. No living dragon can create these marks. We can barely read the few fragments carved in ancient stone." The classroom had gone completely silent. Every student stared at the scene. Lily looked up from her paper, confused by all the fuss. "Hi," she said to the dragons. "Do you want to see my picture?" Grandmother Scale lowered herself to the floor, bringing her massive head level with the child. Tears rolled down her scaled cheeks. "Little one, where did you learn to make these shapes?" Lily shrugged. "I don't know, I just think they're pretty. My brain tells me how to draw them." "Impossible." The younger dragon leaned in to look at the paper. His eyes went wide. "This symbol here means sky born, and this one is ancient memory." She has written a complete phrase in perfect worm script. Roy felt his heart beating faster. "You're saying my 6-year-old daughter is writing in a dead language? That doesn't make any sense." "May I see more of her work?" Grandmother Scale asked, her voice gentle but urgent. Lily happily pulled out a stack of papers from her backpack. Each one showed different colored scribbles in flowing patterns. She spread them out on the floor like a rainbow. The old dragon examined each page carefully. Her breathing became faster. The younger dragons made clicking sounds of disbelief. "Every page contains complete thoughts in worm script," Grandmother Scale said. "This page describes the beauty of starlight. This one speaks of friendship between different creatures. This one tells a story about a lost traveler finding home." She looked at Roy with wonder and something like fear. "Your daughter has written more readable worm script in one afternoon than exists in all the archives across every dragon world combined." "But how?" Roy picked up Lily, holding her close. "She's just a regular kid. She doesn't know anything about dragon languages." "That is what makes this so extraordinary." Grandmother Scale stood up slowly, retrieving her staff. Worm script is not learned. It cannot be taught. The ancient dragons who created it drew the symbols directly from their understanding of reality itself. When the genetic plague struck our people thousands of years ago, we lost that ability. The language died with our ancestors. One of the younger dragons was already speaking into a communication device. I must report this immediately. The Dragon Council will want to know. Wait, Roy held up a hand. Nobody is reporting anything until I understand what's happening. Is my daughter in danger? Danger? No, no. Grandmother Scale shook her head. But she may be the most important child in the galaxy right now. If she can create worm script, she can help us recover everything we lost. History, philosophy, science, art. All of it was recorded in this language. All of it has been unreadable for millennia. Lily wiggled in her father's arms. Can I keep drawing now? I want to make a picture of a rainbow. The innocence in her voice struck everyone in the room. Here sat a child who held the key to unlocking 50,000 years of lost dragon civilization, and all she wanted was to draw pretty colors. May we stay and observe? Grandmother Scale asked Roy. I promise we will not disturb her. Roy looked at his daughter, then at the old dragon, then at the papers covered in symbols he could not understand. His simple life as a teacher had just become incredibly complicated. Fine, he said finally, but she comes first. If this upsets her or scares her, you leave immediately. Agreed. Grandmother Scale lowered herself to the floor again, settling in to watch. Lily returned to her paper, humming her butterfly song. She picked up an orange crayon and began adding new shapes to her drawing. Behind her, 3 dragons watched in reverent silence as a human child rewrote their history one scribble at a time. 3 days passed in a blur of activity. The small classroom transformed into something resembling a research center. Dragon scholars arrived on Harmony Point by the dozens, each one carrying ancient stone fragments wrapped in protective cloth. They filled the hallways outside Roy's classroom, speaking in hushed tones and clicking their claws nervously. Lily seemed unbothered by all the attention. She drew during breakfast, during lunch, and during the afternoon break. Every page she filled made the dragons more excited. They photographed her work, compared it to their fragments, and argued about translations. Roy insisted on rules. No more than 3 dragons in the room at once. No touching Lily without permission. No staying past her bedtime. The dragons agreed to everything, desperate for any access to the child. Dr. Rebecca Walsh arrived on the 4th day. She was a human xenolinguist from Earth's University of First Contact Studies, tall and thin with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. She carried 6 cases of equipment and wore a serious expression. Mr. Patterson, I need to study your daughter, she said without introduction. Get in line, Roy replied tiredly. He had barely slept since this whole situation began. Rebecca softened slightly. I know this is overwhelming, but I think I can help you understand what's happening, and more importantly, I can help protect Lily from becoming just another research subject. That got Roy's attention. Come in. They sat at Roy's desk while Lily colored nearby, currently being watched by Grandmother Scale and 2 younger scholars. Rebecca pulled out a data pad and showed him a series of photographs. These are human children from 7 different colonies, she explained. Ages 5 to 8. All of them draw the same kinds of patterns as Lily. I've been tracking this phenomenon for 2 years. Roy stared at the images. Each one showed papers covered in flowing symbols identical to what Lily created. How many children? 12 confirmed cases so far, probably more we haven't found. Rebecca swiped to another screen. The interesting part is what happens as they get older. Around age 9 or 10, they lose the ability completely. They can still draw, but not these specific patterns. Why? Brain development. When human children are young, their pattern recognition systems are incredibly flexible. They see connections that adults miss. They find meaning in chaos. Rebecca leaned forward. I believe their brains are tapping into something fundamental about reality itself, something the ancient dragons understood but modern species have forgotten. One of the young dragon scholars approached their desk. His name was Bronze Wing, and he had been visiting every day. "Excuse me, but I could not help overhearing. You say human children lose this ability as they age." Rebecca nodded. "Always, by age 10, it's completely gone." Bronze Wing looked distressed. "Then we have limited time to learn from them. This makes the situation even more urgent." "Urgent for who?" Roy stood up. "You're talking about my daughter like she's a resource that might run out. She's a child, not a living translator." "Peace, Teacher Roy." Grandmother Scale came over, moving slowly. Bronze Wing meant no disrespect, but he speaks truth. If human children can create worm script only during a small window of their development, then we must understand why before that window closes. Lily finished her current drawing and held it up. "Look, I made a forest." The paper showed green and brown scribbles arranged in vertical lines. To Roy it looked like trees. To the dragons it was apparently something else entirely. Grandmother Scale studied it carefully. "This says growth comes from many roots becoming one trunk." She touched the paper gently with one claw. "Your daughter has just recorded an ancient proverb we thought lost forever. This single phrase will be analyzed by scholars for years." "But she just drew a forest," Roy said helplessly. "She drew what she saw in her mind," Rebecca explained. "And what she sees happens to match a language her conscious mind knows nothing about. It's like she's accessing a deeper layer of reality, a pattern beneath patterns." Commander Owen Price appeared in the doorway. He was station security, broad-shouldered and serious. "Mr. Patterson, we have a situation. The collective has filed a formal protest with station authorities. They're demanding equal access to your daughter." Roy felt his stomach drop. The collective was a union of insectoid species known for aggressive expansion and information hoarding. What does that mean? "It means they want to study her too. They're arguing that if one species gets access to ancient knowledge through human children, all species should have the same opportunity." Owen crossed his arms. "Between you and me, I think they're worried about dragons gaining too much power." "This is exactly what I feared," Rebecca said. "Lily isn't just a scientific curiosity anymore. She's becoming a political issue." Bronze Wing clicked his claws anxiously. "The collective does not understand. This is dragon heritage. Our history, our culture, our lost language. It should not be shared with those who have no connection to it." "But humans aren't dragons either," Owen pointed out. "What gives humans the right to access dragon knowledge?" "We're not trying to access anything," Roy said sharply. "My daughter is drawing pictures. You're all the ones making it complicated." Lily walked over and tugged on Roy's sleeve. "Daddy, why is everyone arguing? Did I do something wrong?" Roy knelt down and hugged her. "No, sweetie, you didn't do anything wrong. The grown-ups are just confused." "I can teach them," Lily offered. "Maybe if everyone learns to draw the pretty shapes, they won't be confused anymore." Grandmother Scale made a sound like laughter mixed with crying. "The wisdom of children. Perhaps that is the real lesson here." Rebecca stood up suddenly. "Wait, Lily, you want to teach others to draw like you do?" "Sure, it's easy. You just let your hand do what feels right." Lily demonstrated by picking up a crayon and making a flowing gesture in the air. Bronze Wing watched closely. "I would like to learn, if the small one would teach me." "Can dragons even hold crayons?" Owen asked. "I will find a way." Bronze Wing sat down on the floor next to Lily. "Please, small one, show me how you see these patterns." Lily giggled and handed him a purple crayon. "Okay, first you have to think about something that makes you happy." Roy watched his daughter begin instructing a dragon 3 times her size in the art of crayon drawing. Rebecca was taking notes rapidly. Grandmother Scale observed with tears in her eyes again. Owen stood guard at the door, ready to protect against any threats. And outside the classroom, dozens of dragons waited their turn to learn from a 6-year-old human girl who had accidentally become their bridge to the past. 2 weeks later, Roy stood in the observation room watching through a one-way window. Lily sat at a low table surrounded by 5 dragon children, each one barely larger than her. They held modified crayons designed for claws, carefully trying to copy the shapes she demonstrated. "No, like this," Lily said patiently. "You have to make your hands soft. Stop thinking so hard." A young dragon with copper scales named Ember tried again. The crayon slipped and made a jagged line instead of a smooth curve. She hissed in frustration. "It's okay," Lily assured her. "My first tries were messy too. Try thinking about your favorite food while you draw." Rebecca stood next to Roy, monitoring brain scans on her portable equipment. Fascinating. When Lily draws, her neural activity shows a specific pattern in the right temporal lobe. When the dragon children try to copy her, their brain scans are completely different. They're using logic centers instead of intuitive ones. "Does that mean they can't learn?" Roy asked. "Not necessarily. It means they're approaching it wrong. Dragons are taught from hatching to think analytically. It works against them here." Rebecca adjusted her scanner. "Wait, look at this." Ember just stopped thinking. Her brain activity changed. Through the window, Ember had closed her eyes. Her crayon moved slowly across the paper, making a wobbling but recognizable curve. Lily clapped her hands. "You did it. That's the start of a pretty shape." Ember opened her eyes and stared at her drawing. "I felt something, like remembering a dream I never had." Grandmother Scale entered the observation room, moving more slowly than usual. The past weeks had exhausted her. "How does the teaching progress?" "Slowly," Rebecca admitted. "The dragon children show occasional flashes of ability, but nothing consistent. They're fighting against their own education." "Perhaps that is the point." Grandmother Scale watched Lily demonstrate another symbol. "Our ancestors lost worm script at the same time they lost something else. The ability to simply be, to exist without purpose or analysis. Humans, especially human children, still possess that gift." Roy's communication device buzzed. Owen's voice came through urgent and tense. "Roy, we have a problem. The collective representatives are demanding immediate access to Lily. They've filed a legal motion with the Galactic Council." "I'm on my way." Roy turned to Grandmother Scale. "Can you watch her?" "With my life," the old dragon promised. Roy found Owen in the station's administrative center, facing down 3 insectoid beings. They stood 7 feet tall with chitinous black shells and multiple limbs. Their compound eyes reflected no emotion. "Mr. Patterson," the lead collective representative spoke through a translation device. "We have obtained a legal ruling. You must allow our scholars to study your offspring. Knowledge belongs to all species." "She's not being studied," Roy said firmly. "She's playing with friends." "Dragon friends, dragon benefit. This is unacceptable." The insectoid clicked its mandibles. "We have technology that could scan her brain patterns, replicate the neural processes, and mass-produce worm script without relying on a single child." "You want to copy her brain?" Roy felt anger rising. "She's 6 years old." "Age is irrelevant to data acquisition." The collective representative consulted a data pad. "Our legal right is clear. You have 3 days to comply, or we will take custody of the child for proper scientific examination." Owen stepped forward. "That sounds like a threat. We don't take kindly to threats on this station." "It is not a threat. It is legal procedure approved by Galactic Council." The insectoid turned to leave. "3 days, Mr. Patterson." After they left, Roy collapsed into a chair. "They can't actually take her, can they?" Owen looked uncomfortable. "Technically, The Galactic Council has authority over interspecies disputes. If they rule in favor of the collective, station security would have to comply. Then we leave. Tonight, I'll take Lily somewhere they can't find us. That would make you a fugitive. You'd never be able to work anywhere in registered space again. Owen sat down across from him. There has to be another way. Rebecca came running into the room, her data pad held high. I found something in the historical archives. 500 years ago, a human colony ship passed through a region of space called the Dragon Graveyard. It's an area where ancient dragons supposedly went to die millennia ago. So, Roy felt too tired for history lessons. So the colony ship reported strange dreams affecting their children during the passage, dreams of symbols and shapes. When they reached their destination, several children had drawn complex patterns in their sleep. Rebecca showed them photographs of ancient paper preserved in museum cases. The patterns match worm script perfectly. Owen leaned forward. You're saying this has happened before? Multiple times throughout human expansion, always in areas where ancient dragons once lived, always affecting young children. I think human brains are sensitive to something dragons left behind. Maybe quantum resonance, maybe dimensional echoes. The science doesn't matter as much as the pattern. Rebecca looked at Roy intently. Humans aren't creating worm script, we're receiving it, like radio antennas picking up a very old broadcast. That still doesn't solve my problem, Roy said. The collective doesn't care about theories. They want my daughter's brain scanned. But it changes the legal argument. If Lily isn't special, if any human child in the right circumstances could do this, then taking her accomplishes nothing. The collective can't demand access to every human child in the galaxy. Rebecca smiled grimly. We just need to prove it. How? Take more children to the Dragon Graveyard. See if they develop the same abilities. If they do, it proves my theory. If they don't, well, at least we tried. Roy thought about it. The Dragon Graveyard was 3 weeks away by standard transport. 3 weeks where the collective couldn't touch Lily because she'd be in transit. 3 weeks to find an answer. What does Grandmother Scale think? He asked. I haven't told her yet, but I suspect she already knows. Rebecca pulled up star charts. The Dragon Graveyard is sacred space. Very few dragons ever go there. They consider it haunted by the memories of their ancestors. Maybe it is, Roy said quietly. Maybe that's exactly what we need. The transport ship Wandering Star carried 17 human children, their parents, and a handful of dragon observers through deep space. Roy watched Lily sleep in her bunk, peaceful and unaware of the legal battle being fought over her existence. Outside the window, stars stretched into lines as they traveled faster than light. We arrive at the Dragon Graveyard in 4 hours, Rebecca announced from the doorway. The children are excited. They think this is a field trip. In a way it is. Roy adjusted Lily's blanket. Either we prove your theory or we don't. Either way, we're running out of time. Bronze Wing appeared behind Rebecca, ducking to fit through the human-sized doorway. Grandmother Scale asked me to tell you something. The Dragon Graveyard is not empty. Ancient automated defenses still function there. They were designed to protect the resting places of our ancestors. From what? Roy asked. From scavengers, from the curious, from anyone not of dragon blood. Bronze Wing clicked his claws nervously. When we enter that space, the defenses will scan us. If they detect hostile intent, they will fire. Rebecca frowned. You're saying we could be attacked by robot guardians. I am saying the guardians cannot tell the difference between a looter and a scientist. To them, all non-dragons are potential threats. Bronze Wing looked apologetic. I volunteered to come on this journey to help prevent that. My presence may convince the guardians to stand down. May, Roy stood up, you're not sure. These systems are 50,000 years old. They may not recognize modern dragons. We have changed much since those times. Bronze Wing touched his chest. But I will try. I will not let harm come to the small ones." The ship shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the windows, a vast field of asteroids appeared. But these weren't normal space rocks. Each one had been carved and shaped, covered in the same flowing symbols that Lily drew. "Dragon graves," Bronze Wing said softly. "Each stone marks where an ancient one chose to die. There are millions of them here." Lily woke up and pressed her face against the window. "Pretty lights, they're glowing." Roy looked closer. She was right. Each carved stone emitted a faint blue luminescence, filling the space around them with gentle light. "That should not be possible," Bronze Wing whispered. "The graves have been dark for millennia. Why are they glowing now?" Rebecca checked her instruments frantically. "I'm detecting massive quantum field activity. Something about our presence is activating these stones." "It's the children," Grandmother Scale said, entering the cabin. She had remained mostly in her quarters during the journey, meditating and preparing. "The stones recognize what the children carry, the echo of Worm's script in their minds." Alarms blared throughout the ship. The pilot's voice came through the speakers. "We have incoming, multiple objects approaching fast." Through the window, Roy saw them. Mechanical constructs shaped like dragons, but made of metal and light. Dozens of them emerged from behind the carved asteroids, moving with deadly grace toward the ship. "The Guardians," Bronze Wing said. "They have awakened." "What do we do?" the pilot shouted. Bronze Wing moved to the communication panel. He began speaking in the ancient dragon language, his voice taking on harmonics that hurt Roy's ears. The mechanical guardians slowed but did not stop. "They do not recognize my authority," Bronze Wing reported. "I am too different from what they remember." Lily tugged on Roy's sleeve. "Daddy, I know what to say to them." "What, Lily, know?" But she had already climbed onto the communication console, speaking into the microphone in a language that should have been impossible. The words flowed from her mouth in perfect dragon harmonics, each syllable carrying layers of meaning Roy could feel but not understand. The mechanical guardians stopped. They hung in space around the ship, their glowing eyes focused on the source of the transmission. Lily continued speaking, her 6-year-old voice somehow reaching across millennia to touch ancient programming. Roy recognized some of the sounds. They matched the symbols she drew, given voice and breath. One by one, the Guardians powered down their weapons. They arranged themselves in a formation around the ship, not as threats but as escorts. Lily stopped speaking and smiled. "I told them we're friends. They're going to show us the special place." "What special place?" Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where the old dragons kept their teaching stones, the ones that help little dragons learn the pretty words." Lily pointed at a massive asteroid in the distance, larger than all the others. It pulsed with brighter light. "The Guardians say children are always welcome there." Bronze Wing stared at the child in awe. "That is the Heart Stone, the central repository of all worm script knowledge. We thought it destroyed in the ancient wars." "Not destroyed," Grandmother Scale said. "Hidden, protected, waiting for those who could hear its call." She looked at Roy. "Your daughter did not just speak to the Guardians. She spoke as the ancients spoke, with pure intention and innocent heart. These are things no technology can fake." The ship followed the mechanical escorts toward the Heart Stone. As they approached, more symbols became visible, carved over every surface of the massive asteroid. They glowed brighter as the ship drew near. Other human children came to the windows, drawn by the light. Their eyes went wide. Several pulled out crayons and paper they had brought, beginning to draw frantically. "It's happening," Rebecca said, watching her instruments. "All 17 children are showing the same neural patterns as Lily. The Heart Stone is triggering something in their brains." "Not triggering," Grandmother Scale corrected. "Teaching. This is what the Heart Stone was built for, to teach children of any species who had the capacity to learn. The ancient dragons believed knowledge should flow like water, finding any vessel that could hold it. Roy felt overwhelmed. So Lily isn't special. She is extraordinary, Bronze Wing said firmly. But you are right that she is not alone. Any human child with an open heart and flexible mind can learn what she knows. The gift is not rare. It simply needed the right circumstances to bloom. The ship docked at the Heartstone. As the airlock opened, warm air flowed in, carrying the scent of something ancient and welcoming. The 17 children rushed forward, eager to explore. And deep in the stone, systems that had slept for 50,000 years hummed back to life, ready to teach once more. Inside the Heartstone, corridors carved from solid rock stretched in every direction. The walls glowed with countless symbols, each one pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The 17 human children walked through the passages with wonder, their small hands reaching out to touch the ancient writing. Lily placed her palm against one glowing symbol. Images flooded her mind. She saw dragons teaching smaller creatures to write, to think, to understand the patterns that connected all living things. She saw classrooms filled with different species learning together. They weren't just teaching dragons, she said aloud. The old dragons taught everyone who wanted to learn. Grandmother Scale nodded slowly. Yes, that is the truth we forgot. We modern dragons believe worm script was only for our kind, but the ancients saw knowledge as belonging to the universe itself. They were simply caretakers, helping others learn to read what was already written in reality. Rebecca recorded everything with her equipment. The quantum resonance in these walls is off the charts. I think the symbols aren't just writing. They're actual imprints of consciousness, preserved in the stone itself. When the children touch them, they're accessing memories from dragons who lived 50,000 years ago. A small boy named Tommy ran ahead of the group. He turned a corner and gasped, "Everyone, come look." The corridor opened into a vast chamber. Floating in the center was a sphere of pure light, rotating slowly. Symbols drifted through it like fish in an ocean, combining and separating in endless patterns. "The core," Bronze Wing whispered. "The heart of all worm script. I have only seen it in ancient legends." The light from the sphere touched each child. One by one, they began speaking in harmony, their voices blending into the dragon language as naturally as breathing. They weren't translating or remembering. They were simply allowing the knowledge to flow through them. Roy watched his daughter join the chorus. Pride mixed with fear in his chest. She looked so small in front of that massive sphere of light, yet she showed no hesitation. The symbols in the sphere began rearranging themselves. They formed new patterns, ones that even Grandmother Scale had never seen. "What's happening?" Owen asked, his hand on his weapon. "They are creating," Grandmother Scale said, her voice filled with emotion. "The children are not just learning the old scripts, they are making new ones. This is how worm script was meant to evolve, through young minds adding their own understanding to what came before." Rebecca checked her readings again. "The other children back on Harmony Point, the ones we identified, they're all showing increased neural activity right now. Somehow the Heartstone is connecting to every human child with the capacity to learn worm script, no matter where they are in the galaxy." A network, Roy realized. The ancient dragons built a teaching network that spans space itself. "And humans are compatible with it," Bronze Wing added. "Just as the ancients intended. They knew their own species would someday lose the ability. They built this system to wait for others who could carry the knowledge forward." The children finished their singing. The sphere pulsed once, then went still. New symbols now floated within it, mixing seamlessly with the ancient ones. Lily turned to face the adults, her eyes still glowing slightly. "The Heartstone says the collective is wrong. Knowledge can't be stolen or forced. It only works when shared freely, when hearts are open. If they try to take it, they'll just get empty data that means nothing." "Can you prove that?" Roy asked gently. The Heart Stone already did. Lily pointed to a section of wall where new writing appeared. These symbols describe what happens when someone tries to force understanding. The meaning collapses, like trying to grab water with a closed fist. Rebecca photographed the new writing quickly. This is exactly what we need. Scientific proof that worm script requires voluntary participation. The collective's brain scanning wouldn't work because they'd be approaching it with the wrong intention. They will not accept this easily, Grandmother Scale warned. The collective does not think in terms of intention or heart. They see only data and efficiency. Then we give them data they can understand. Rebecca pulled up her readings. These quantum measurements show that worm script operates on principles that require conscious cooperation. It's not just language. It's a technology that responds to emotional and mental states. Trying to copy it mechanically would be like trying to photocopy love. You'd get an image, but none of the meaning. Bronze Wing touched one of the new symbols the children had created. This one says teaching creates teachers. The children learned from the Heart Stone, and now they can teach others, not just humans or dragons, any species willing to approach with openness and patience. That changes everything, Owen said. If the knowledge can spread naturally through teaching, the collective has no legal grounds to demand forced study. They can simply send their own children to learn. Would insected children be compatible? Roy asked. I do not know, Grandmother Scale admitted. But the ancient dragons believed all conscious minds could access these patterns in some form. Perhaps insectoid children would interpret worm script differently than human children do. Perhaps they would add their own unique understanding to the network. Lily walked over to a small alcove in the wall. Inside sat dozens of carved stones, each one small enough for a child to hold. She picked one up. These are gifts. The Heart Stone made them for us to take home, so we can teach others even when we're far away. Each child took a stone. The symbols on them glowed softly, warm to the touch. Teaching stones, Bronze Wing said with reverence. The ancients used these to spread knowledge across their empire. With these, the children can establish new learning centers anywhere in the galaxy. Roy held the stone Lily gave him. It felt alive somehow, pulsing with gentle energy. So we go back to Harmony Point and share this with the Galactic Council. Show them that force and scanning accomplish nothing, but cooperation and teaching can give everyone access to this knowledge. If they will listen, Grandmother Scale said. They will, Rebecca said confidently. Because we have 17 human children who can now demonstrate worm script on demand, plus proof that the ability can be taught. That's not a legal case the collective can fight. The children gathered around the sphere one last time. It pulsed in farewell, dimming slightly as they prepared to leave. The mechanical guardians waited outside, ready to escort them safely back to their ship. Lily hugged her teaching stone. The Heart Stone says we'll be back, lots of times, with lots of new friends who want to learn. Roy hoped she was right. The Galactic Council chamber held representatives from 200 species. They sat in circular rows, each delegation occupying their own section designed for their unique biology. At the center stood a presentation platform where Roy, Rebecca, and Grandmother Scale waited to make their case. The collective delegation sat in the upper rows, their black shells gleaming under the chamber lights. Their lead representative clicked its mandibles in what might have been impatience. The council recognizes Dr. Rebecca Walsh of Earth, the council speaker announced. Rebecca stepped forward, activating the holographic display. 3 weeks ago, the collective filed a motion demanding forced study of human children who display aptitude for ancient worm script. I am here to present evidence that such action would be legally unjustified and scientifically worthless. The hologram showed brain scans from all 17 children during their time at the Heart Stone. Worm script is not simply a language stored in neural pathways. It is a quantum state phenomenon that requires specific emotional and intentional conditions to function. Attempting to copy or extract it through mechanical means produces only meaningless data. Speculation, the collective representative stated. Your evidence shows correlation, not causation. We maintain that proper scanning technology could replicate the neural pattern successfully. Then explain this. Rebecca showed the video of insectoid scientists attempting to read worm script they had copied from photographs. The symbols appeared correctly on their displays, but when they tried to interpret them, their translation devices produced only gibberish. You already tried copying the symbols. It failed because you approached it as data rather than understanding. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. The collective delegation remained silent. Grandmother Scale took her turn at the platform. Honored council, I speak as one who has lived long enough to remember when dragons believed worm script belonged only to us. We were wrong. The ancient dragons designed this knowledge to be shared across species, taught through willing cooperation rather than claimed through force. She gestured to where the 17 human children sat with their parents. Each child held their teaching stone. These young ones have proven that any species with open minds can access what we thought lost forever, but they have also shown us something more important. The knowledge itself resists being taken. It must be given freely. Pretty words, the collective representative said, but words do not change legal precedent. The Galactic Council has ruled before that no single species can monopolize access to discoveries that benefit all. Then we propose a solution that satisfies everyone. Roy stepped forward, his voice steady despite his nervousness. The children will establish teaching centers on multiple worlds. Any species that wishes to learn worm script can send their young to study. No force, no scanning, just teaching and learning the way it was meant to be. And what prevents dragons from controlling these centers? Another council member asked. From deciding who learns and who does not. The children decide, Lily said, standing up without being called. Her small voice carried through the chamber's amplification system. Not dragons, not humans, not the collective. Kids decide who learns because kids don't care about power or politics. They just want to share cool stuff with friends. Several council members made sounds of amusement. The collective representative did not seem amused. You propose placing galactic education policy in the hands of children, it asked. I propose trusting them to do what adults have failed to do, Roy said firmly. Share knowledge without trying to weaponize or monopolize it. Bronze Wing stood in the dragon delegation section. I have learned alongside the human children. I can attest that their teaching method works. Any dragon child can now learn what we thought only ancients knew. If it works for dragons and humans, it can work for others. We wish to test this claim, a new voice announced. A delegation Roy had not noticed before stood up. They were crystalline beings from the Harmony worlds, rarely seen at council sessions. We will send our children to your teaching center. If they can learn, we will support your proposal. If they cannot, we will support the collective's motion. Rebecca nodded. Agreed. We welcome any species willing to approach with open minds. The council speaker consulted with advisors. The council will adjourn for one galactic standard month. During this time, the teaching center will operate under council observation. Representatives from 12 species have volunteered their children as test subjects. If 75% or more show measurable progress in worm script comprehension, the collective's motion will be dismissed. If fewer than 75% succeed, forced study protocols will be approved. This is acceptable, the collective representative said after a long pause. Roy felt tension drain from his shoulders. 1 month. They had 1 month to prove that teaching worked better than taking. Lily tugged on his hand. Can we go home now? I want to set up the classroom. Soon, sweetie. Roy knelt down beside her. Are you ready for this, teaching lots of different kids? It'll be fun, Lily smiled. Tommy and I already planned games to help everyone learn, and Bronze Wing said he'd teach dragon flying games, and the teaching stones will help too. Over the next month, Harmony Point transformed. The observation deck became a massive playground where children from dozens of species learned together. Insectoid children learned to relax their rigid thinking. Crystalline children learned to interpret symbols through light refraction. Aquatic children from water worlds learned to draw in special fluid-filled tanks. Lily and the other human children moved between groups, teaching through play and patience. The teaching stones provided guidance, but the real learning happened through friendship and shared curiosity. Dragon children like Bronze Wing served as bridges, helping translate concepts between species. Adult scholars observed and took notes, amazed at how quickly the children grasped ideas that adults found complex. On the final day of the observation period, 93% of participating children demonstrated basic worm script comprehension. Many showed unique interpretations based on their species' perception, adding new dimensions to the ancient language. The council dismissed the collective's motion unanimously. Teaching centers were approved for establishment on 40 worlds, each one run by a council of children with adult advisors only for logistics and safety. Roy watched Lily teach a small insectoid child how to make smooth curves with a modified drawing tool. The two of them laughed together, finding common ground despite their completely different biologies. "You were right," Rebecca said, standing beside him. "The wisdom was in the children all along. We adults just needed to get out of their way." Grandmother Scale joined them, moving slowly but with contentment in her eyes. The ancient dragons would be pleased. This is what they hoped for when they built the Heart Stone, not preservation of the past but growth into the future. Bronze Wing landed nearby, having just returned from teaching a flying class to non-winged species using gravity harnesses. The young ones ask when they can visit the dragon graveyard themselves. "Soon," Roy promised, "once they finish the basics here." Lily ran over, her face bright with excitement. "Daddy, Zix just wrote her first complete word in worm script. She says it means friendship in her people's interpretation." Roy hugged his daughter. 6 months ago, she had been just another kid doodling in his classroom. Now she was teaching the galaxy that some gifts grew stronger when shared. The teaching stones glowed softly around the room, each one held by a child who would carry ancient wisdom into a new age, not through conquest or theft, but through cooperation and joy. And somewhere in the dragon graveyard, the Heart Stone pulsed with satisfaction, its purpose fulfilled at last.